simple formula. This is from Dale Carnegie, right? This is a thing called evidence defeats doubt. And defeats is an acronym. Okay, so you have when you're building a case, stick to this thing, right? D is demonstration, right? Demonstrate the benefits. E is exhibits. Who, maybe someone has done this in the past. Maybe, case studies, case materials, right? Let me try to spell. F is facts, right? Here's the facts. Rails is blah, 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 more, whatever you can find, right? And E is examples, which is kind of like the other E, so whatever. A is analogies. Sometimes analogies, they're the least powerful of the whole thing, but
I mean, I start talking about analogies, people they want to kill me. They don't. People seem to have this disease where if you use analogies, they don't like it. Why?
You throw it in the mix, right? But I agree, right? Analogies are metaphors and analogies are kind of like what all of human, spiritual life is built upon, and I say spiritual not in necessarily,
right.
And
so how come people can't identify with that?
If that's all you use, I think you're going to have a problem, right? If you trade in analogy, you're going to have a problem. So you need these demonstrations, you need these examples, or exhibits, you need these facts, right? Let me get through this in a second. So T, testimonials, expert advice. If you trade in testimonial, Martin Fowler says, that kind of, you're not going to win, right? But I think the whole combination will help, right? And so T, testimonial, expert advice, expert, Uncle Bob says, right? That kind of thing, right? And S is statistics, if you can find statistics, right? I think I've had the same problem, I mean, I tend to speak in analogy, the whole metaphors we live by thing, I mean, anytime we say technical debt, we're employing an analogy, right? People accept that. So I think finding analogies that are accepted, finding analogies that are proven. I think analogies, and especially in software development, can be pretty dangerous. We're not building buildings here. We're not cooking dishes. We're developing software. Now that said, I think, my opinion, because I have a captive audience, I'll just let you know, is that more than anything, product development, it's really kind of like industrial design. That's what I'm kind of trying to build toward in my software development career, is that we're like a creative design team, design thinking, Stanford D school stuff like that. So I think analogy, you want to, and I've thrown that out version 1 and gotten, pushback or whatever, but it wasn't necessarily productive to come at it from an analogy angle, using some of the other rules to get around to that change, where there isn't a big handoff between product management and development. There isn't a product team and a development team. There's a product development team. We come together at the problem stage to figure out a solution, and we break apart into our specialties. That's kind of the ultimate to me in an agile team. Is that you're working as a unified whole, a gestalt. There's a gestalt, right? You're working as a unified whole, and then you break apart into your specialties. There's a great, I don't want to say great, it's pretty good. There are parts of it that are really good. Okay, a movie called Objectified. Has anyone seen Objectified? It's a documentary about industrial design. And it's on Netflix. Who has Netflix? Everyone, right? Netflix rules the world. Get it on Netflix, it's free, right? I mean, you've already paid for it, right? So you can get it there, you can stream it, download it, whatever, Xbox, you can watch it. And there's some really frou-frou stuff, it's kind of like, all right, this guy waxing poetic about, erasers, and he's got, all pink, okay, right? A little out of my zone, but, look at the IDEO stuff, right? The guys that, they do the OXO tools and a bunch of stuff, and there's a really good ethnographic kind of study of how a creative design team works, how a gestalt happens, you know, where you have people that are workshop folks, you know, that are carving foam or making prototypes or, you know, programming CNC routers or whatever it is, right? And then you have, you know, principals of the agency that are like, you know, involved in sell side stuff and whatever. And you have designers, you know, that are like sketchbook driven, you know. So you have all these people coming together to figure out a problem about a toothbrush, you know. And so I think that's, at least in product development, if you really think of yourself as a product developer, I think that's the way to go. I think that's the pinnacle that humanity has arrived at, as far as getting away from a collection of individuals and what can one talented individual or a couple talented people do versus what can a community, a product community do. Right?
How big is the brand then, as it relates to all that for any of us?
How big is the brand?
How does the brand drive that?
I don't really get it.
Well, brand, you know, you got, you know, vision, mission, values, blah, blah, blah. The very top of that typically is the brand.
Sure.
Let's say you identify, you look at this, you know, you're looking at this can of pop, the brand is Pepsi. You understand a million things about it just by looking at this can.
Uh-huh.
And so when we talk about the brand and product development, establishing a brand basically says a million things to everybody in product development. And they all ascribe to that. I
think so. I mean, you look at the lean startup movement, right? You know, and that's a bit of a different kind of leading thing, right? The pivot, right, is the kind of like the customer development, right, is the kind of thing that drives the product development. And that's a bit out of the scope here, right? But I think that considering these things are, okay, so let's add a rule. What are we at? Okay, remind me. We got fire someone, we've quit, find that, build an ally, find that little ember of interest. We've got healthy peer pressure, which is like an adjunct to that rule that's like 0.1. And what else?
Hire and listen.
What?
Hire and listen.
Hire ringers, listen, and then I'd say context, right? You know, what is the brand? So when when you're shopping for your next career, pay attention to that brand. Now, I went to version 1 because I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, all agile all the time. I want to be Mr. Agile, you know, all the way, right? So, and we have a very strong sense of our brand, simplifying agility, right? Cool, you know. So I think that just paying attention to that kind of thing. Context. One of the most overused words in software development. Component, service, context, yeah. Anyway, so yeah. So I think another rule that I'll add, I'm reading this book now. This is it's a Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions by, it's a story of John Fire Lame Deer. Is this like Lakota Indian guy. And he's a medicine man. And I'm not going to get too mystic here. It's not my thing. But I like this chapter called The Upside Down, Forward, Backward, Icy Hot, Contrary. So we'll make that another rule, okay? So be the upside down, forward, backward, icy hot, contrary. Now, there's this thing in the Lakota culture called a heyoka. And a heyoka is a medicine man that receives a dream of, now this dream can involve lightning, thunder, or thunderbirds. And thunderbirds are kind of like the impish X factor, right? They're the wild card of the spiritual realm in Lakota, belief, right? And when you receive this dream, it is, as a medicine man, it is incumbent upon you to do all kinds of weird stuff, right? I would pace like this, right? If I was the heyoka, right? You walk backwards, you wear your clothes backwards, sometimes you go naked, that's not gonna happen. I'll spare you, trust me, anyway. So you do all this weird stuff, right? And you do this contrary stuff, and it makes people laugh, right? So I think this is all a really kind of complicated and self-indulgent way of saying that you gotta kind of keep a good sense of humor, right? Now I'll tell you, version 1, man, I put NDepend on that. We had .NET code base, NDepend on that stuff after accepting the job. Pro tip, do it before, right? This shit was bad, right? I mean, talking about big ball of mud. I mean, it was like a Pluto-sized ball of mud. You know, it was, is it a planet? Is it? I don't know, but terrible, right? You know, and we worked through it over 2 years, like to kind of tease it apart, right? But when you're living with that kind of technical debt, you know, you're like, you got to kind of keep a sense of humor about it, right? You can't, now that's not to say be negative, right? You know, it's easy to fall into this trap of like, I hate this, you know, it sucks. And I've been there, you know, definitely. But you got to try to keep you got to try to convert that into a sense of humor about it, right? Create a humorous environment, right? I don't know. I mean, you got to laugh, right? Life's too short, right? So it seems lame, this rule, but I really believe this. You know, I've seen this work for us, you know, and that someone created this pile of crap, right? And now we're all charged with fixing it. And we have to fix it. That's the goal, right? But the people that created it are still there. Okay, so you got 2 modes. You can rip on it, you know. You can bitch about it. You can whatever, or you can. Am I on TV? Or you can just kind of laugh about it, right? And that's, to me, that's how you bring people into this awareness that you are not your code, right? What we did 2 years ago doesn't matter. We're here at the present, right? Kind of be contrary, you know. Be this heyoka. You know, I wouldn't recommend this book. I mean, it's interesting. It's not terribly well written, but you know, whatever, right? All right, who wants to sum up the rules? What do we got? We got fire. I'll go first. Quit. I mean, yeah, quit. Okay, sorry. Quit. What else we got? Fire. Quit fire. Focus on the interested people, and then we added to that like healthy peer pressure, right? Listen. Hire ringers. Pay attention to context. Be contrary. All right, and by contrary, it's a very subtle form of contrary. I don't mean just be stupid contrary. I mean cultivate a sense of humor about things, right? You know. I think that your personality as a coach matters. I don't think you want to be big personality all the time, but introducing a bit of levity, right? So maybe contrary/levity, right? You know, it's not the end of the world, you know. All right. So I'll add another rule to the mix, and then I'm going to ask you guys. So think about it. So start thinking. But I think that with your team, take your team and know your team, right? Establish a relationship with these people. Go out to lunch with them. One-on-ones are great. You know, just hang out with people. Get to know what they're about, right? There's a practice that I like, it's a Dale Carnegie thing again, called the interview, right? And this is a thing that you can do if we were in a more, this is kind of a stand and deliver type environment, but if we were in a kind of a workshop type environment, we'd probably just do this. But it kind of works like this. You pair up, you know, get everyone in pairs, and you go through 3 sets of questions for each person. You know, you take turns doing, you know, trading the interviewee roles, right? Flip-flop. And the questions are, you kind of follow this very, very simple framework. You ask a factual question. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college? Where'd you know, whatever. You ask a causative question. Why'd you choose what you majored in? You know, why do you live where you do? You know, this why. It's kind of a why. And then you ask a value-based question. It's like, what do you get out of where you live, your neighborhood? What really appeals to you,